welcome back to U.S. Navy History Podcast. I am Dale, and I'm joined by Christoph.
Hey, Captain Dale, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Oh
So,
man, if that's the measure of life, everybody's doing pretty great.
not everybody.
Are you participating in World War One?
Me, no.
Well, I mean,
But there are people that are
yeah,
participating in other wars around the world. Right?
that is crappy.
Yeah. All right. So, as we just mentioned, World War One, we have jumped deeper into the campaigns. We're in the Balkan tour. And we were about to start on the Serbian campaign.
Okay,
So, are you ready to get underway?
as ready as I'll ever be.
All right. So, the Serbian campaign started on July 28th, 1914, when Austria Hungary declared war on Serbia. And they shelled Belgrade the next day. On August 12th, the Austrian Hungarian armies crossed the border, the Drina River. Initially, 3 out of 6 Austro-Hungarian armies were mobilized Serbian frontier, but because of Russians, the Second Army was redirected east to the Galician Theater. The railroad lines leading to Galicia were busy because they were transporting other troops. The Second Army would only start going north on in order to make use of the Second Army having stuck there. The allowed parts to be used in the Serbian campaign until they were able to actually go north.
Hmm.
Eventually, they directed some parts of the Second Army, which equal to about 4 divisions, to assist the general's main force. And they were like, well, you guys aren't going anywhere until the last week of August. The initial defeats suffered in the first invasion of Serbia eventually forced them to transfer 2 divisions from the Second Army permanently.
Oh, yeah, this escalates quickly, so that's not surprising, but I'm sure it was a surprise to them at the time.
Yeah. So the 5th and 6th Austro-Hungarian armies had about 270,000 men. And of course, they were much better equipped than the Serbs. The Austro-Hungarian Empire had the third largest population in Europe in 1914.
No kidding.
They were behind Russia and Germany.
That's surprising. That's, I guess, not something I would have thought about, although they do cover a lot of territory given the size of the empire, so that does make more sense.
Yeah. So the general in charge of the Austro-Hungarian command was General Podoric, and he rushed the attack against Serbia from northern Bosnia with his Fifth Army, which was supported by elements from the Second Army from Sirmia. The Sixth was positioning itself in southern Bosnia and was not able to commence offensive operations. Now, the general's desire was to win a victory before the emperor's birthday and give the Serbia to him as a gift.
That's really aiming high. I mean, when I think about my gift giving, it's fair to middling with some occasional wow factor, but it's not Serbia.
Yeah. But because of him wanting to do this before the emperor's birthday, he made 2 strategic
Yep.
arrows. He attacked with only half his strength, and he attacked in a hilly region in western Serbia instead of the open plains of the north. This did surprise the Serbian Marshal Putin, expected the attack from the north, and he was like, "Wait, no, this has got to be a feint.
Right.
This guy's not this stupid."
Didn't he realize
Now,
the emperor's birthday was coming up?
maybe, maybe not. But eventually it does become clear that this was the main thrust. So they transferred their second army over to the third army, who was already facing the Austro-Hungarian, to expel them. This was a fierce 4-day battle, the Battle of Sur. And the Austro-Hungarians were forced to retreat.
Mm.
This made this the first Allied victory of the war.
Well, how about that?
Casualties numbered about 23,000 for the Austro-Hungarians, 4,500 captured, and 16,500 for the Serbs.
Oh.
That's going to bring us to the Battle of Drina. So now Serbia was under pressure from her allies. And so they conducted a limited offensive across the Sava River into the Austro-Hungarian region of Sirmia with the 1st Serbian Army. The main goal was to delay the transport of the Second Army to the Russian front.
Okay.
Of course, this failed because the Second Army were already being transported.
There's always backup objectives, right?
Sure.
I mean,
Main one is what you want.
yeah. No, I get
That's
you.
why it's called the main one.
Right. But then, when plans fall apart and you've got the guys right there, you got to think of something.
The Serbian Second Army, the Timok Division 1, suffered a heavy defeat when they tried to do a diversionary crossing. They suffered around 6,000 casualties and inflicting only 2,000.
Oh, man.
The Austro-Hungarian general had most of his forces in Bosnia, and he decided that the best way to stop this Serbian offensive was to launch another invasion into Serbia
Okay.
to force the Serbs to recall their troops to defend against that invasion. So September 7th is a new attack west across the river, this time with both the 5th Army and the 6th. The beginning of the attack by the 5th Army was repelled by the Serbian 2nd Army. The stronger 6th Army managed to surprise the Serbian 3rd Army and gain a foothold. Then the Austro-Hungarian 5th Army managed to establish a bridgehead with another attack. Marshal Putnik decided to take his 1st Army from Samaria and use it to do a counterattack against the 6th Army. Actually, this went pretty good.
Okay. The word initially's got me concerned. Continue.
Yeah, well, they got bogged down in a very bloody 4-day fight for a mountain peak. Both sides suffered horrendous losses because they just kept going with frontal attacks, frontal attacks,
Oh,
frontal
that's right.
attacks.
This is one of the first battles of World War I, and they don't understand. The strategy has to be completely different given the technology.
Yeah, and also fighting over a mountain.
Ugh.
That the Austro-Hungarian loss was probably about
And this was 4 days of fighting? That's severe.
yeah, that's about 3,000 on each a day.
These losses must have been mind blowing to the nations, or at least to the combatants. If France and Russia and Great Britain or whomever, Germany, weren't paying attention, that should have caught their attention. Like, whoa, that's a lot of casualties.
It's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
But also during this time, I don't think it would have been as mind blowing as it is to us. Just that leaders don't care about it.
That's true. Well, I'm sure there are militaries around the world that still have this attitude. It's there. For example, yes. But also, I think with modern conflict, we see a lot more strategy and precision weaponry. So when we lose a convoy of 12 soldiers, that's a big deal. You know what I mean? Versus 3,000 a day. Like the scope is unreal.
Yeah. So the marshal, Putnik, he ordered a retreat into the hills, and the front settled into a month and a half of trench warfare. This heavily favored the Hungarians and was very unfavorable to the Serbs. They did not have much of an industrial base.
Mm.
They did not have much in heavy artillery, ammunition stocks, even shoes.
Shoes in trench warfare are critical.
Most of their war material was supplied by the Allies, and their allies were short of material themselves. So, because of this, the Serbian artillery went quiet very quickly, while the Austro Hungarians steadily increased their artillery.
Hmm.
During months, Serbian casualties reached 100 a day in some divisions.
Wow.
During the first few weeks of the trench warfare, the Serbian army and Montenegrin army conducted a abortive offensive into Bosnia. Both sides conducted a number of local attacks, most of which were defeated.
Oh.
The Serbian army used mine warfare for the first time.
Oh, I guess that was a technology. I think that was first developed during the U.S. Civil War. And that was kind of the first modern use of that.
Yeah. They dug tunnels beneath the Austro-Hungarian trenches, which were about only 20 to 30 meters away. They planted mines and set them off just before an infantry charge.
That is pretty brilliant and brutal. And I can't imagine,
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the makeup of the ground in your area, but the thought of digging under a trench where I live sounds like the most backbreaking labor. It's just once you go down 5 inches, it's rock. So I'm sure it's different on that battlefield because not only were trenches able to be dug, but also a tunnel under the trench.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I guess
I don't know. It was
I,
a
y-
field trip.
well, a field trip gives the connotation of where we're doing it for leisure. This is for research. This is for the listener. This is important.
Mhm.
We will have fun because we're enthusiasts of history.
We're going to see exactly how easy it is for you to tunnel
Well, you can just give me the tools that they use. Because I would imagine if it's rocky and you're clanking stone out of the way, people are going to hear that, right? I mean, how do you do that?
Not over the artillery.
It's true. I guess if you timed the strikes, nobody would notice.
I'm sure gunfire was going off all the time.
Hmm. So here's what we'll do. I'll dig, and then I think we can try to simulate it.
How about we not ruin your hearing?
No, not that close. I mean, several meters away. That's what they use, right?
Yes.
All right. Tens of meters.
Instead of firing rounds, how about we just use a boombox?
I don't know. I'm willing to compromise a little bit for the sake of the experiment.
It'd also be cheaper.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in.
You got a plan. All right. So now the Serbian army has been weakened. So the Austro-Hungarian army launches another massive attack on November. This is the Battle of Kolubara. The Serbs do a fighting withdrawal. Then they have put on very strong resistance to the Kolubara River. But since they didn't have any artillery, was not very effective.
Okay, I was like, wow, Guy, what a simple name. Okay, continue.
We'll call him General ZM.
Ooh.
He took over as the commander of the First Army. He insisted on a deep withdrawal to give his troops some rest and to make the front a little bit shorter.
All right.
Marshal Putnick was like, okay, you know what? Fine. Stop crying. You can do it.
All right.
Now the consequence of this was that he had to abandon the capital city of Belgrade.
Mm.
The Austro-Hungarian army entered the city on December 2nd. They moved the entire Fifth Army into Belgrade.
Wow.
And they used it to crush the Serbian flank.
Mm.
This move did leave their Sixth Army alone for a few days, and they had to face the entire Serbian army. So that was not good for the Sixth.
No.
So at this point, the Allies finally get artillery ammunition to the Serbs from France and Greece.
Okay.
They were also able to send some new units. And Marshal Putnam, looking at the situation, was like, you know what? Those Austro-Hungarian forces are very overstretched. And they've been quite weakened. So he's like, counterattack with the entire Serbian army.
Whoa.
This was on December 3rd. It was against the Sixth Army of the Austro-Hungarians.
All right.
The 5th was like, we need to hurry up with our flanking maneuver out of Belgrade. But yeah, they were not fast enough.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. The Sixth Army breaks. The Hungarian Sixth Army breaks. And the second and third Serbian armies overwhelm the 5th. The Hungarian general loses his nerve and he's like, okay, guys, we gotta get out of here. And they retreat across the rivers into Austria-Hungarian
Wow.
territory.
That's quite a retreat.
Yeah. The Serbian army.
This guy sounds like he's a pretty good strategist. I mean, he's working with what he has, and he's outnumbered, and the technology they have is not as advanced as the Austro-Hungarians, yet he's managing to keep them at bay. And this started in what, August? And now it's December? That's
Mhm.
significant.
Yes, it's very. So this ends the first phase of the war against Serbia. There is absolutely no change to the border.
Wow, how about that?
The casualties were enormous.
Yes.
The Serbian army suffered 100,000 dead, wounded, captured. Austro-Hungarian losses were around 215,000.
Golly, that's mind-boggling. I can't even picture that many people.
The Austrian-Hungarian general was removed from command and replaced by Archduke Eugene of Austria.
So this is a theme that I recall in looking at World War I, where a lot of aristocracy gets put in charge. And so the Archduke, I don't know how much military strategy training these aristocrats have, and a lot of times many of them will have purchased their rank just for status. And that causes a big problem when the fighting starts. And so I'm curious what this Archduke is capable of.
Well, remember, they're still not converting yet modern way.
Right, exactly.
But yes, that's why the aristocracy were still looked at as we are the best.
Right.
Because we are best.
We lead men. That's what we do. Our decisions will be right.
So the Archduke gets put in charge, but on the Serbian side, a typhus epidemic pops up and kills hundreds of thousands Serbian civilians during the winter.
Insult to injury.
So that's going to take us into 1915.
Here we go.
So early in the year, the Ottoman defeats the battles of Sharikamash and the First Suez Offensive. The German Chief of General Staff, Edric von tried to convince the Austro-Hungarian Chief of Staff, Conrad von Hotzendorf, the importance of conquering Serbia. If Serbia was to fall, then the Germans would have a direct rail link from Germany through Austria-Hungary and then down to Istanbul and beyond.
Yeah.
This would allow the Germans to send military supplies and even troops to help the Ottoman Empire.
Strategically, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But Austria-Hungary was not interested. They were like, no, we don't like the Ottomans.
That is so interesting to me. Because when you end up on the same side of a war and you allow your disdain for your ally to overwhelm very, very concrete military objectives, it seems negative. It seems like that really could have helped.
Also, they did not see Serbia as the biggest threat. While they did want to defeat Serbia, especially since they just got their butts handed to them.
Yeah.
They saw Russia as the more dangerous enemy. Also, Italy has joined the war on the side of the Allies. So they had their hands full.
Okay. I was under the impression they joined the Central Powers, but then like mid-war they switched.
Italy did join the Axis powers at beginning World War II.
Mm-hmm.
No, during World War I, at least at the beginning, they joined with the Allies.
Okay. Yeah, right. Thank you.
So both the Allies and the Central Powers went to Bulgaria, and they were like, pick a side. Bulgaria and Serbia had fought two wars in the last 30 years. It was the Serbo-Bulgarian War in 1885 and the Second Balkan War in 1913. This made the Bulgarian government and people feel that Serbia was in possession of lands to which Bulgaria was. And when the Central Powers said, you know what, we'll give it to you, Bulgaria was like, yeah, we're on your side.
Oh, well, I mean, I get. Can you imagine coming off of the heels of a localized war like that, Serbia, Bulgaria, and 2 wars in 30 years, you said, and then this new conflict erupts with a lot more players, and they say, hey, you know that stuff you lost? We'll get it back for you. And you're already reeling from the last conflict. And you just, I guess it's hard to put myself in the minds of the people of that time at that place. But I wouldn't want to jump into another war. Not that quickly.
Yeah, you got to give your time for your population to recover.
Right.
After the Allied loss in the Gallipoli campaign and the Russian defeat at Gorlice, King Ferdinand of Bulgaria signs a treaty with Germany on September 23rd, 1915, and Bulgaria starts mobilizing
Uh-oh.
for. Before that September 23rd date, the Serbs had tried and, of course, failed to rebuild their armies, improve their supply situation. Serbian army was only about 30,000 men stronger when the war began, and still very badly equipped. Britain and France had talked about sending military forces to Serbia, but nothing happened until it was too late. And Bulgaria starts mobilizing. The French and British sends 2 divisions, but they arrive late in the Greek town of Solna, Salonika.
That sounds right.
Sure. Part of the reason for the delay was the national schism in Greek politics at this time.
What a time to have a schism.
Yes. So the forces now against Serbia, including the Austro-Hungarians, was the Bulgarian First Army, the German 11th Army, the Austro-Hungarian Third Army, all under the control of Field Marshal August von Mackensen. The Bulgarians also had the Second Army there, commanded by Georgy Todorov.
It's a lot of O's in that name.
Yeah, there's 3.
That's it.
So the Austro-Hungarians and the Germans begin their attack on October 7th, with their troops crossing the Drina and the Sava rivers, covered by a huge amount of heavy artillery fire. Once they crossed the Danube, the Germans and Austro-Hungarians moved to Belgrade, where street fighting, very vicious street fighting, started. It took 2 days to the Serbs out. On October 14th, the Bulgarian army attacks from the north of Bulgaria towards Nis, and from the south towards Skopje. The Bulgarian First Army defeats the Serbian Second Army at the Battle of Morava, while the Second Bulgarian Army defeats the Serbians at the Battle of Ovochi. So once the Bulgarians break through, this Serbian position becomes untenable. The main army of the north had two choices. They could either retreat or be surrounded and forced to surrender. In the Battle of Kosovo, the Serbs make a last desperate attempt to join two incomplete Allied divisions that had tried to make a advance for the south. They were unable to gather enough forces because of all the pressure they were getting from the north and east. They were halted and had to pull. Marshal Putnik then orders what is now known as the Great Retreat.
Oh man.
It was a full retreat south and west through Montenegro into Albania. The weather was absolutely horrendous. The roads were almost non-existent, and the army had to help tens of thousands of civilians who were retreating with them.
Whoa. I can see why it's called the Great Retreat.
Yeah.
That's not. Usually you do want your name to go down in the history books associated with great, Alexander the Great. Yeah. But not the Great Retreat.
Yeah. Now, the poor roads and the bad weather did help as much as hinder them, because the Central Powers were not able to press them as hard as they needed to. So they were able to get away. Many of the retreating soldiers and civilians didn't make it to the coast, though. A lot of them were lost to hunger, disease, and attacks by enemy forces and Albanian tribal bands.
Oh my gosh. They're trying to flee into a whole different country that may not want them at all.
All told, only about 155,000 Serbs reached the coast of the Adriatic Sea.
Wow.
And got on Allied transport ships. Most of them were soldiers.
Hey. And this is the first. Serbia's already devastated.
Yeah. And remember, this is back with horse-drawn wagons.
Oh yeah. Like,
this wasn't even motorized.
It's just, if you're lucky, horses. I know during the course of this conflict, because horses are so instrumental in war at this time, there's no real automobile anything until later. The nations go through a lot of horses.
Oh, yeah. Horses get targeted.
Oh, yeah.
So the evacuation from Albania was completed on February 10th, 1916. These guys were so weakened that thousands of them died just sheer exhaustion after they were rescued. Marshal Plutnik himself had to be carried during the entire retreat and died around 15 months later in France in a hospital.
What? So, given this great retreat, you would think that the pursuing armies would be pretty secure. Like, this sounds like a pretty solid victory on their part.
Oh, it was not a victory for the Serbs.
Oh,
absolutely.
no, yeah. But like the Central Powers, I think they're called.
Guys, yeah. So the French and British divisions, they marched north from Thessaloniki in October of 1915 under the command of a French general, Maurice Sorel. the War Office in London was like, you know what, we can't go really too deep into Serbia because, it's not looking good.
Mm-hmm.
So the French divisions, they were like, oh, Londoners, English, classic enemies of the French, but now not enemies. We got this. And
Okay.
they advance on their own up the Odar River. This advance did give a little bit of help to the retreating Serbian army because the Bulgarians had to concentrate larger forces from their southern flank to deal with French threat.
That makes sense.
This was the Battle of Krivolok.
Hmm.
By the end of November, the French general had to retreat in the face of a massive Bulgarian assault on his positions. During his retreat, the British at the Battle of Costarino were also forced to retreat. So by December 12th, all Allied forces were back in Greece. The Montenegro, who was the ally Serbia, they did not go with Serbs into their exile, but they retreated to defend their own country. They were like, oh, this is not going to be good for us. We can't go with them. We got to go home.
Right.
Then the Austro-Hungarians launched their Montenegrin campaign on January of 1916. Ended up being completely defeated within 2 weeks.
What?
So this was pretty much almost a complete victory for the Central Powers.
I'll say.
They had around 67,000 casualties, while the Serbs had around 94,000 killed or wounded, 174,000 captured. 70,000 of those were wounded as well. The railroad that the Germans wanted was finally opened. The only flaw in the victory was that much of the Serbian army had successfully retreated. But it was very disorganized and needed to be rebuilt. So that's going to take us into 1916 to 1918. The Serbian army is now in Greece, and they join up with the Allied Army of the Orient,
Oh.
where they fought a trench war against the Bulgarians on the Macedonian front. Of course, the Macedonian front in the beginning was mostly static. The French and Serbian forces retook limited areas of Macedonia by recapturing Bitola on November 19th, 1916. More of a stabilization effect to the front. They finally make a breakthrough the Vidar offensive in 1918 after most of the German and Austro-Hungarian troops the heck out of there. This was significant in defeating Bulgaria and Austria-Hungary, which led to a final victory of World War I.
Hmm.
After this breakthrough, Bulgaria capitulated on September 29th, 1918. Hindenburg and Ludendorff came to the decision that the strategic and operational balance had now dramatically shifted against the Central Powers. And we're like, you know what? We want pace.
Yeah, that's a good time to call for it.
Yeah, they were like, look, Bulgaria just collapsed. Let's do a peace thing. Sign a little piece of paper saying, no more fighting. On September 29th of 1918, the German Supreme Army Command informed Kaiser Wilhelm II and the Imperial Chancellor Count George von Hertling that everything's hopeless. The Emperor Wilhelm II telegrammed the Bulgarian Tsar Ferdinand I, quote, disgraceful. 62,000 Serbs decided the war.
Oh, man, he's throwing some serious shade. Although, I know that during the course of this war, I think Germany does most of the heavy lifting. And Austria-Hungary does okay, but the Ottomans, I think, definitely overstretched themselves. They wanted more territory, and they were very ill-equipped to fight against the folks they were fighting against, and they made a lot of careless decisions.
Doesn't help when everybody hates you.
Right. Even your own allies don't want to support you.
Yeah. So the collapse of the Macedonian front meant that the road to Budapest and Vienna was now open for the 607,000 man army. General Franchit, when the Bulgarians surrendered, this deprived the Central Powers of 278 infantry battalions and 1,500 guns.
Ooh.
The German High Command responded by sending 7 infantry and 1 cavalry division to replace these losses. But of course, this was not even close enough
Yeah.
to reestablish the front. The Serbs then spearheaded the attack of the Allied armies of mostly French, but some British and Greek troops, and pushed forward in September of 1918, forcing Bulgaria to lead the war and managing to liberate Serbia 2 weeks before the end of World War I.
Wow.
So when the war ended, the Treaty of Neuilly awarded Western Thrace to Greece, and Serbia received some minor territorial concessions from Bulgaria. Austria-Hungary was broken apart, and Hungary lost much of their land to both Yugoslavia and Romania in the Treaty of Trianon. Serbia assumed the leading position in the new Kingdom of Yugoslavia, joined by its old ally Montenegro. Italy established a quasi-protectorate over Albania and Greece and reoccupied Albania's southern part, which was autonomous under a local Greek provisional government.
Wow.
Even though that Albania was neutral during the war.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Some casualties for the Serbians. Before the war, the Kingdom of Serbia had 4.5 million inhabitants.
All right.
The New York Times estimated about 150,000 people died in 1915
God.
during the typhus epidemic. The American Red Cross and 44 other foreign governments, the outbreak was brought under control by the end of the year. The number of civilian deaths is estimated by some sources at 650,000. Primarily due to, again, the typhus outbreak in Yemen, but also direct clashes with the occupiers. Serbia's casualties account for 8% of the total Allied military deaths.
They're such a small country. I mean, that's insane. Because when the British and the French, especially, get involved, they're pulling troops from their colonies, right? Australians, India, the French provinces of Africa. So they lose more, but they're drawing from vastly larger populations.
Yeah, this is just one small country. The Serbian army lost 58%.
Golly.
According to Serbian sources, the total number of casualties is placed around 1. About 25% of Serbia's pre-war size and 57% of its overall male population.
Dang. That's devastating.
All right, so that is the Serbian campaign. Devastating for the Serbs.
Yes, this is going to be the first of many, I think, where we go, oh, that was devastating for insert country name here. Ugh.
Yeah. So, next episode, we're going to talk about the Montenegrin. We're going to, the Serbian allies.
Yeah, just their neighbors to the north, right? Right on the border. I mean, they're practically surrounded by
They're, yeah,
Austria-Hungary.
yeah, they're like, they're,
Right, yeah. It's the Canada of Serbia.
all right. So, we're going to end the episode by honoring one of our fallen angels with the help of HeroCards.us. So we're going to honor Corporal Benjamin Robert Bazell. His hometown was Seymour, Connecticut. He's part of the U.S. Army. His unit was the Headquarters Battery 57th Field Artillery Battalion 7th Infantry Division. He received a Purple Heart. His date of sacrifice was November 30th, 1950. Killed in action near Chosin Reservoir. Corporal Benjamin Benny Bazell was just 18 years old when he fought in one of the early major battles of the war. The Battle of Chosin Reservoir in North Korea took place from November 27th to December 15th, 1950. Referred to as Frozen Chosin because of the brutal cold, this intense battle led to the draw of all United Nations forces from North Korea. According to the Defense POWMIA accounting agency, the Chosin Reservoir is a man-made lake located on the northeast of Korean Peninsula. It was the site of one of the most brutal battles between the UN and Chinese Communist forces during the Korean War. For approximately 17 days, roughly 30,000 UN soldiers and Marines, an enemy force estimated around 120,000, over rugged terrain, lethally cold weather. Over 1,000 U.S. Marine soldiers were killed during the Chosin Reservoir campaign. Thousands more were wounded in battle or incapacitated by cold weather. Corporal Bazill's body could not be recovered after the battle, and he was listed by the Department of Defense as missing in action until 2018. Following a summit that year with the United States, Bazill's remains were among 5 turned over by North Korea. Corporal Bazill's sister, Beverly Golizia, was just 12 years old when her brother was reported as missing. The indication that her brother had been found came 7 decades later. Golizia had fond memories of Benny, calling him just a sweet, sweet boy who would wake her up late at night when he got home from his bowling alley job to tell her he had cancer. So, Corporal Benjamin Robert Bazell, we thank you.
Thank you.
All right, get us out of here.
Hey, listeners, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really wonderful having you along, and it gives me the perfect excuse to ask all the questions, so thanks. If you have a question for us and want to ask us directly, or if you have information for us, it's like, oh yeah, my great-grandfather fought in this conflict, and this is what happened, we would love to hear it. You can tell us a couple different ways. One, you can email us at usnavyhistorypodcast@gmail.com. We're also on x.com, formerly twitter.com, or X-Twitter, as Captain Dale likes to call it, at US Navy. Hold on, I always mess this up. US History Pod. So I'm going to go with USN History Pod, but you know what? Call me on it. And the way you can do that is go to the show notes, and you can see the link to that platform. Additionally, there's a link to a Discord server where you can jump on, chat with us, chat with other listeners, tell us stories about World War I. It's the perfect place to do it. What's left is just to rate and review and tell a friend or a coworker or a bunkmate or whomever. If you like what you're listening to, let someone know about it, and then they can listen too. Thanks.
And with that, we're going to wish you guys fair winds and following seas.
Bye.